agenda. Any additions or deletions, Tarlin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I need to pull the pump track, and I need to do some more work on it, so we'll be back on the May 17th agenda. And also, too, for today, the voting system will be a raise of hands.
Yep, I was just going to say
Oh,
that.
sorry.
Yep, because we've got a new person on the computer that's green, so.
And it doesn't work.
Okay, Dustin's moving the agenda with the deletion of the pump track. Vote. Carried. Minutes from last one, or from the public hearing. Everybody read them over? That was a pretty good booklet. Michelle's gonna move the public hearing minutes. Any questions? Vote. Carried. Minutes from the council meeting. Richard's moving those. Any questions on them? Vote. Carried. We're on to 6.1, Tarlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bylaw 2022-13, property tax, second and third readings. It's on page 12. And just when you look at the cover sheet for the request for decision, it has changed. We're gonna roll with what we have. If you have any suggestions, please let me know and we can change it. We've changed it up a bit. And we've added things such as recommendations for public engagements and that sort of thing. So we've changed the format up a bit, so it's different. And thanks. And if you see something that needs to be done, let me know.
Shane?
Should have let me know beforehand because it confused the hell out of me last night. I'm going, what? Strategic plan alignment, check, all that apply. What the heck am I supposed to be doing here now? Who did this? Who did this? Who changed this up? Why wasn't I notified?
Well, you just weren't paying
I think I
attention.
did. I sent an email out prior.
I was gonna say, I knew about it, and I think it looked great.
I didn't
You did a good job.
That must went in my junk email. I usually got a lot of yours going to my
it
junk.
took a bit.
So. Yes.
So sorry to digress there. So before you is the 2022-13 bylaw for property tax. It starts on page 12 and carries on with background information. The bylaw is on page 15. First reading occurred at the previous council meeting. And is there any questions?
Richard's moving second.
And just as a comment, the old guy had no problem with the new format. He picked it up right now.
Okay, any questions or comments? Robin?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Reeve. I'm just curious, we're talking about the property taxes. Is this also taking into consideration the discussion with regards to the school requisition?
Yes, it is. Our Director of Corporate Services, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. In the background and things we've discussed before, what had happened this year is the county's in a unique situation. Council developed a methodology to move all tax rates to the 20th percentile, and that was amazing work. We still have challenges ahead of us in terms of financing and making sure that we have that sustainability and viability into the future. So as directed by council, we developed the tax rates according to that 20th percentile plan. And we also look for, I guess I'll just use the word opportunity in there that align with council's vision. So this year in particular, we found that the school, just for a complete open book here, we found that the school tax rate had decreased, and the taxes, the overall taxes, would have been a downward adjustment. But through that school tax reduction, there's a legal sized paper in front of every chair, and if there's not, we can get you one. And so the track record since 2010 is that the school tax has fluctuated. And when that school tax fluctuates, that's out of our control. That's out of the municipality's control. So we see they generally go up and then down, and they may make large increases or large decreases. But there's no pattern. There's no we can't forecast what they'll be. But what we can make an assumption is if there was an election coming up, the government of Alberta likes to inject cash into health and school. So this might be the year to take a little bit more and have taxes relatively the same according to your 20th percentile, but increase the municipal side more while keeping the relative tax bill that shows up at the House, the aggregate tax bill, the total tax bill, without large increases. It's just we will now get to keep and fund operations and futures, like the 40-year future, to the tune of about 1.6 million that we'll be keeping extra. And that was from the budget that was approved by council last meeting. So I think it's come into question how we got that or how we could defend that. And perhaps I would just offer that next year we may see that same 11% increase. And as directed by council, it could be that we're seeing next year a reduction of our tax rate to make sure the tax bill that arrives at people's houses isn't drastically increased, that it's not kind of an oppressive type increase. So if I were to summarize that, we have the room, if council wishes, we have the room to increase those tax rates to mitigate a future increase that's just critical that we have to do. So in taxation, you've heard me say it many times, but taxes aren't a game of catch up. So we have the opportunity to put ourselves in a favorable position to be able to absorb shocks later and take the sawtoothing, the increases and decreases out of that tax rate and deliver taxes to our ratepayers, to our taxpayers that's kind of level and expected. That was the intention behind these changes, or recommended changes, excuse me.
Robin?
Okay, thank you, Steve. As you were talking, I was just kind of trying to, I guess, frame everything in my mind, and perhaps my issue is that we use the term opportunity and then operating. And I think that what would clarify things a lot in my head, we do have a reserve currently for rate stabilization. And if we had a reserve that was for school rec rate stabilization, that 1.6 million went into, that if we had something later where we were having to top it up, when we look at it as an opportunity to use towards operating, I actually don't see that as the same thing as rate stabilization. We're actually taking it right from our operating capital. If we're doing it as a part of a rate stabilization, I'd be okay with that. Is that something that would be simple enough to do?
Shane?
I know what you're getting at, Robin, but if you look back in 2021 when they increased it 7.8%, then what? I mean, then we would have to really raise because we're getting nailed at another 7.8%. The year before that was a reduction of 1.76. Like Steve is saying, it's so up and down. And I think what we're doing is correct, but I got another question. What is on here? The AMR would have resulted in an estimated increase to school tax of nearly 20%. What is AMR?
Do you have any other? Yeah. Richard?
Robin, through the chair to Rob, I'd like to just keep it simple and not another, what was the word you were looking for? You wanted another fund, another piece? Reserve, yeah. And I would just like keep it simple. It's easy to explain this way. We've got lots of numbers in front of us, And to have a reserve just strictly for the school tax rate, no. It's gonna go up and down. It's been explained how it keeps it on track, on board at a good level, so I'm good with the way it is. That's why I made the motion for second.
Any other comments? Not seeing any. Keith?
So in the past, when this is fluctuated, like I see there's lots of different fluctuations, how have you compensated? Like in a year where you get minus 1.6, 2.3, has the council actually lowered your taxes, or have you done exactly what you're trying to do this year? Just kind of maintain them and keep on going, or did you actually reduce taxes in a certain year? Like, I'm just trying to figure out what you've done in the past.
Steve?
Up to date, that has not been a consideration of previous tax rate bylaws. In 2020, when the assessment model review came through, we were reminded how important these pieces are to the municipality. This is the future of the municipality, our ability to be sustainable. And if we don't move forward carefully and appropriately, we risk our future. And the assessment model review reminded us of that. That's fair. But we haven't used this as a tool in the past. Our resources were so abundant, we never experienced finite resources where we needed to carefully look at these type of things. So, Councillor Ritz, when you see those changes, excuse me, for example, 2013, we see an increase of 4.6%. And then 2014, we see a reduction of 3.8%. So we just saw tax bills increasing, decreasing over those periods of time. If council would like to consider and consider the message that taxes aren't a game of catch up, yeah, I'm getting emotional about this. That's what it is. That is a tool at council's discretion to help smooth the sawtooth effect of taxes year over year, that they can be an expected and accepted and planned for type of change, up or down.
So basically, if taxpayers come back and say, well, what about this, what about that, we can say exactly what we're doing. We're not hiding anything. Yeah, the school tax went down. We absorbed a little more on the county side to keep taxes even, so that next year when they come back, that would be a logical explanation, right? Because that's really what we're doing. So we're absorbing it this year, so that next year you don't have a great big tax hike. And I guess I don't have a problem explaining it that way.
Steve?
I couldn't have put it better. That's what's happening. But I would just add, when as your staff, as one of your team members, I need to recognize the risks to your methodology that you've developed. And I see a risk of not achieving council's goal of achieving that 20th methodology is the school tax. And so exactly that. This year it dropped, and I used the word opportunity. I could have used the word risk mitigation. So if next year we see that 11% increase, I would present that to council to see where council wanted to go with that increase. Do we want to absorb it, or do we want to let it ride through? So I think if council's okay with going through it this year, then we have a built-in shock absorber to adjust in the future. But if we don't take that approach, then we might end up at some point having the double whammy.
Robin?
So, Steve, I guess my question is the way that Councillor Ritz mentioned it, that makes sense to me, and it's easy to explain, except that it's coming out of operations. How complicated is it, or is it just an entry to have an actual ledger account that specifically tracks it as a rate stabilization, so that if we're subsidizing down the road, we can simply look at it every year and go, hey, you know what, we're subsidizing a lot more, and it's accumulating, and therefore we need to do something differently, because I don't think that what you're proposing is intended to fund operations. What I'm hearing everybody agree on is that it's intended to keep the rates consistent so that when we go in and we come out, but the methodology of the 20th percentile is to make sure that we don't keep having discussions of, well, how much do we bump the rates this year? It's supposed to make things easier for staff to understand where we're going, set out kind of a trajectory where we want to be in 5 years. And this just allows us to track how much we've subsidized for or against over the years so that we can make good governance decisions down the road.
Caroline?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it would just be a motion of council to create a new reserve fund. That's how that works. Also, too, council determines where the funds go for the last entries, because we bring that back about the allocation. That comes back to council as well. So if you wanted to have requisition, stabilization, something, then at a future meeting, we can bring that back for your consideration.
Okay, any other questions? Robin?
So I recognize we want to move forward and get this done. So I may not be the only one that cares about it. So I'll make the motion as an amendment. We can vote on the amended motion. Therefore, I've done my diligence. I'd like to see this as a part of it, and then we can still vote on second reading and third reading. If my hope to see this as a separate fund goes down, then I'll vote along with the rest of council. It's just
Steve?
We can proceed however council would like. There might be an easy solution here to consider. The new if this passes, we'll have about 1.6 extra million from that previous budget. 22% of that increase was, it was less than that. It was about 12% was going to be hitting operating. And we know that inflation's coming. But the remainder of that, 1.2 million, was put to a reserve. So, if like apples to apples, most of it is going to be future money, right? It's not letting that water go past the bridge, and it is being utilized for the future vision of council and the fleet management plan. So it's not just, we're not just going to blow through 1.6 operating from the last budget. And keep in mind, council always has the ability to reapportion accumulated surplus at the end of the year. So it's not necessarily spoken for. So if something comes up or we find that inflation is drastically changed, we will fund those budgetary needs through unallocated reserves. And that's just a fancy word for leftover money that we haven't put anywhere yet. But council always has the final say of where those unallocated surpluses go. So that'll come back, and council at that time can reapportion that, or we could set a reserve up if council would like.
In previous years, we've put that into certain funds with what's left over every year.
Yep,
Yeah.
and that always comes to council for direction.
Robin?
That makes sense, Steve, but the risk of unallocated reserves from the eyes of a ratepayer when we're putting in increases of 10% on non-residential is, why are we increasing when we have unallocated reserves left over at the end of the year? Whereas if we have allocated reserves set up that we're funding, like unfunded liabilities and things like that, like that's the big thing that's been fueling a lot of our conversations, is with the bridges and the culverts and the things that we haven't previously tracked. Right now we know that it's there. We know that it's there, But if we're putting it into a reserve and we can explain to a ratepayer that's asking, why are we increasing taxes when we have $4 million left over at the end of every year, we're using those unallocated reserves, but it's not showing that we actually need that money. We need to put it into that future planning pot so that it's there for a purpose. That's the only reason why I'm kind of flogging on this. It's just so that people that are questioning some of these decisions understand that there's a reason and a rhyme and reason to what we're doing.
It should be up to you as a counselor to explain it to them, though. We shouldn't have to make extra work in here. Exactly what Keith said earlier. If he can explain it to them and they understand it, that's our jobs. But you want to make a motion then?
Yeah, with respect, my motion would just be that that the funding that is generated through the school requisition be tracked in a reserve moving forward. That's it. It's just an accounting.
Okay. Any questions on it? Blaine?
Well, I guess I'm just still a little bit confused because I understand Stephen's saying that we are tracking it, basically. Yes and no. I mean, we are tracking it, and we're only taking 10% or 12% out into the. So I don't understand why we need to do another one when we are tracking it already.
I think that it's that we're not really tracking it. It's that we were able to go back and see historically what we've got as far as differences, but we don't actually know over the last 10 years how much is in and out and what the amount that we've overpaid has been. And we've just been drawing it from operating. We've been using our unallocated reserves to fund anything that, where we needed to put money in. This is just, it's going to be taking it from an account that is on years like this one, where we have the opportunity to take an additional 1.6 million next year. If we need to put in 1.6, we have that money that's there, and it's not coming out of operating that's allocated to something else. It's just more transparent. That's the only thing. Yeah.
So what if it's 1.9 next year?
Yeah, so then it'll actually show a negative on that, and we may need to make a decision
So it
of
comes
council.
out of operating then.
Yeah, exactly. But then you actually have you're tracking it, Dan. That's the whole thing, is because if it's a negative 300,000 next year and a negative 300 the next year, now we're at negative 600. Now we need to make better decisions on the long term, because maybe we need to increase that every year in order to make sure that we're whole and that we're not funding it.
Yeah, Lloyd?
I understand exactly what you're saying, and I think we should track it. But Steve, you're already doing that, just like we've been talking about. So I really can't, I think it's a good idea to track, but I just don't see the complication in setting up something else.
So if it's okay through the chair, whenever we're approaching these tax rate bylaws, we carefully consider all the inputs into that tax rate bylaw. And as directed by council, to achieve your goal of that 20th percentile methodology, I'm tracking every risk and opportunity of achieving council's goal. And so if we absorb, I'll just say that we'll have a little bit more flexibility going forward without having drastic impacts this year to help manage that. And again, just like this will be presented to council next year, and council can decide however they would like to. I'm certainly not directing council to do anything, but just providing recommendations to achieve your goals as directed to staff, if that's fair.
Michelle?
Okay, this comes out of unallocated funds, right? Like some of it. And if it's coming from unallocated funds, it has to come through council and we have to approve it. Or say no. That, to me, seems like we're tracking it, right? Because we're always, if there's a motion of council that has to be, we have to give money to whatever, it's on the books, we're gonna know about it, right?
Any other questions? Motion on the floor to set up another fund to mark the funds for the extra school tax, I guess.
Could it be called, sorry, Mr. Chairman, could we call it requisition stabilization?
Okay, any questions on that?
Is that cool?
Michelle?
If we call it requisite, whatever you said, would that affect like Cypress View and all the things, all the people that requisition us for money?
Yes, yep, that can be considered there as well. Yep, that's, so it's all, so we don't have all these different funds. So, because Cypress View they have requisitioning power just like the province does for school rec. So, it would be appropriate to put it all together.
Any other questions? Richard?
Sometimes it's good just to keep it simple, and I think you're looking at something that's not an issue for maybe more than one or two people, Robin, as far as transparency. So I'm just saying I like to keep it simple on this matter, so thanks.
Any other questions? Not seeing any, I'll ask for the vote in favor of 3, against. That's lost. Okay, I have a motion on the floor of second reading. Is there any other questions on it? Not seeing any? Vote. That's carried. Motion for third. Lloyd's moving third. Vote. Carried. 6.2, Terlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bylaw 2022-15, 21-505-18, Alberta Limited, local improvement. So there was, on the 120, there was an intersection that was completed and the developer asked for a local improvement to be put on. This will be the first year that the local improvement goes on. The first bylaw that was approved was an estimate on the job. Now it is completed, and we go forth with local improvement, and the local improvement is on the tax notice, and so therefore, we need to, sorry to do this to you, but we need to do first, second, and third today, and to be able to put it on the tax notice.
Okay. Dustin, moving first. Vote. Carried. Keith is moving in second. Any questions on it? Not seeing any. Vote. Carried. Michelle's moving to have third. Vote. Carried. Shane's moving third. Vote. Carried. Yes, that was a bad year. 7.1, Terlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you is the April capital update. It's on, starts on page 24. Is there any questions?
Dustin, you're moving it. Is there any questions on it? Just quick, I didn't have any on this one. I think it was good. Yeah. Okay, not seeing any. Vote. Carried. CAO's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you, starting on page 29, is the CAO report for May 3rd. Is there any questions or comments?
Jane? I didn't even look. I just knew you were.
This for Public Works. I see, where is it now? We got the old Trans-Canada Highway out for tender. Just the old Trans-Canada Highway, or are we doing part of the black and white totals? Because I know the pricing won't be the same as the 120 that we got last year, so I'm just curious what's happening there.
Yeah, through the chair. So this is, we're just, for this tender that's went out, I think yesterday, went out, and that's just for, the OTC, partly because it's tied to that grant funding.
So we got,
And then the black and white's gonna be coming out very shortly.
but we got, the grant funding. Oh, so you split it up, so
We split
the
them
black and white will be coming out at the same time though, so now if a kid bid on both of them.
Yeah, they're two separate, tenders, but yes.
Oh, okay, good, good. What do you, if you don't mind me asking, or afterwards, I guess, what the engineering estimate was?
With engineering estimate on which one, the black and white or the
Old.
old TC, it was right near where we are with our budget, what we presented to council. Yeah, because I think we did that right at that $110 a ton. Yep, that was what our estimate was. So hopefully, but you know, with fluctuation. But
Keith, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering how far this project is going, and is it actually paving it, or is it just dust control?
no, very good question. So that project was from the 524. I'm going to break it down because we applied for a grant. The grant portion we did from the 524 to Range Road 70. The project scope that we're looking at right now has a deletable from Range Road 70 to 65, depending upon the grant funding and the value of the tender. And that'll come back to council. So that goes into Red Cliff boundary, but we don't have any businesses there, so we were focusing, our main concern was on the business traffic that was there and supporting them on that oil road. And then secondary was the gravel going south into Red Cliff.
So the grant funding is through STIP, and you get more merit and you're more competitive to get a grant with the increased traffic counts. So that's why it was broken out. Because we wanted to put our best foot forward for that grant application.
Okay. Good, Keith?
Yeah.
Okay. Blaine?
I got another one. I got bombarded with some questions yesterday that, why do we love to waste money? What the hell are we doing? Suffield Road. We did all that work with the MG30. Now we're graveling it, and it's got everybody up in arms. That the
Yeah.
trucks are out there graveling it. Now it's dusty, and
Very good question. So with that road, what we did is when we had that moisture, I think last week, we put a top shot on there. Or is it this Monday? I guess it was. I don't know if it was Friday or Monday, but
no, it's going on yesterday and today.
okay. So then we put stingers on there, or Sandviks, and we'll be putting a top shot on there. So what that does is the same people that are probably complaining were complaining about the slipperiness. So this alleviates that. Yeah, the road crush is going on top, but what it'll do, it'll pound into the surface. We're working it in, so we'll be going out there with a water truck and working it in. Yeah,
You have Sandvix on it, right?
and we have Sandviks.
Yeah,
on
it
it.
had Sandvix on it to scratch it,
Yeah,
and then that wasn't happening?
they're just laying it down now, and then
I
they
watched-
will follow up with that.
because I was watching the trucks. They just come in and spread, belly dumped, and it was just gravel going. There was no sand
Yeah.
in front of it.
No, the blades,
Blade Sandvix,
Sandviks with the little
the notches.
carbide tips.
Yeah.
So they'll work that in, and they're planning on doing that. I think tomorrow's their crossover day with Corey. Yeah, so tomorrow's when they're doing that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So then
Well-
it's gonna be worked yet.
It's gonna be worked in yet.
But
Okay,
we'll look into it and just make sure that it's happening as per.
I had a
direction.
meeting this morning. It's gonna
Okay.
be worked in.
Okay.
So, and then we were talking about 65 doing the same process, and so that's something that we do when we follow up with our MG. It's no different than we did in the short grass. We added the next year we added the top shot, and then kind of rework it in and reset it for the following year.
Yeah, no, I just thought the trucks were lost.
Blaine?
I just got a simple question. So on Township Road 124, are we counting traffic, or is that a new way of doing it? Because there's a solar thing on the yield sign there.
Yeah, so we have 3 traffic counters, and they're one of them. I can't remember which one that is. We were actually going over that this morning too. We use Houston radar, so we can actually get the traffic counts right to our GPS right in the office. But yeah, we can we can count the traffic going both ways, and it'll also tell us what type of traffic. So if that was part of our conversation this morning, our operations meeting. So if you have any roads that you want traffic counted, please forward that to Tara Lynn and she can facilitate that, because that's part of we were working on that this morning, so.
And that location, I requested that we did traffic counts on there. Because we have some oiling dust strips on there, we need to evaluate to see because one is done, and so we need to see how much traffic is going down there. And so it'll give us a better evaluation.
Shane?
Also got asked about the other part of the old Trans-Canada Highway that's supposed to be going under the road allowance improvement program. When will that be starting? I got asked that yesterday.
Yeah, so that one, that will be a June project, partly because we didn't want to interfere with seeding operations, but that's when we were scheduling is June.
2029.
You're a good man, no matter what Blaine Rose says.
Dustin?
Kind of a follow-up to last meeting. I got a call from the Cooley people again. They were curious about the culvert flushing on Township Road 120 for Seven Persons Creek.
Yeah, I'll follow up with that. So we were actually, we met with Alberta Environment yesterday about proceeding with cleaning out of those 2 culverts, because we are still going down the engineering route, but we want to make sure that our maintenance isn't lacking and then the diversion is still operating or functioning. So that we're still moving forward with that, but we are working on that maintenance of that one culvert that's completely plugged by the beaver. And the check dam, that one check dam it's not allowing the water to divert. So we are working with Alberta Environment to proceed with that, the maintenance portion.
I guess my question is, are we going to do that before the creek starts running? It's a lot easier to do now than it is to do later.
That's, we
You got
are
like
trying to do
4
it.
days.
We're trying to do it actually starting next week, where that's where we're pushing from.
You better push a little faster because the water will be on by Friday.
Yeah, I'll let them know.
Hey, any other questions? Lloyd?
Just one on the emergency services there. Just wanted to say I got 2 calls from the Elkwater Fire Department, and they were quite pleased with that joint exercise that you put on, Jeffrey. And they wanted me to pass that on to you. And I was just going to ask, are there any plans in the future for Elkwater and 1-4 to get together for the grass season?
Thank you for the compliments. One of the things that Tara Lynn and I have done from an administration point of view is to try to encourage the fire stations to work together and train together for a number of reasons. It enhances the quality of their practice night trainings, and it also allows them to get to know their fellow fire members so that when they do arrive at a call or an incident, that they actually do know the fire members that are standing next to them that are responding from other stations. So basically, we are encouraging, we had a meeting earlier this spring between Elkwater and 1-4 that I attended, and I encouraged both departments to train together and to do something and to kind of organize themselves to implement some kind of training together for between the 2 of them, specific to wildland fires. So hopefully the chiefs will initiate something on their own in that regard.
Hey. Keith?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the place to bring it up, but are there any updates on what's happening in Suffield as far as the water?
Yeah, so following up, there's a meeting scheduled this week between the base and Cypress County, and hopefully that we've got a tentative agreement to hold water for 10 years, and we're looking for a longer standing agreement so we can actually take that and make that part of our grant application. We have $3 million allocated for that in grant funding, but we just want to reallocate it for the line between the hamlet of Suffield and the base plant. One other thing I know it's gonna come up, and I'll save Tara Lynn some phone calls, is you'll see that AT is doing the intersection on the 63 and on Highway 63, 63 and Highway 3. And so we're working with the contractor there to see, because part of council's motion last year was to extend the pavement there past the second driveway on Big Marble. And so we'll have pricing for next meeting on that cost, because then we'll save on mobilization and everything else that they're there already. So, but we'll bring that next meeting.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Lloyd wants to move the CAO report. Perfect. Vote. Carried. Reeve and Counselor's report. So I'll just add to mine, because Steve and Tara Lynn and I were lucky enough to go last night to the city finally. Made it work to do the presentation on the assessment review. A lot of good questions came out of it. We had a 15-minute time slot and we were 45 minutes by the time we got out of there. So there was some good feedback and good questions asked on it. Steve did an awesome job on the presentation last night. Had us a little nervous when we walked in. There was a big one for skateboarding coming up and the whole place was packed. I've never seen that many people in City Hall. So we're kind of looking around like, oh my, this is for us. But it wasn't, thank goodness. But no, it went over really well, same as in my report. Newell, we were at Newell last week and did the presentation, and that was very well received at Newell. They recognize that they're in the same boat as us, so they're very much on board with what we're trying to do and the direction we're trying to go. So we're getting progress out there, we're getting it out, and it's working. So that's it for me. We'll start with Lloyd.
Besides attending the regular meetings, again, the landfill meeting and that, it's gone good. I wanted to thank Tara Lynn for sending that email out about Elkwater and Volker. I got 3 phone calls the other day, and one took over an hour to settle, but it got done, and they know who to phone now and that. But other than that, it's been quiet. Keith?
Well, I don't really have anything too much to report, other than I took a few phone calls about the lack of water pressure in Suffield yesterday, but other than that, it's all good.
Dustin?
Yeah, quiet for me as well. Few phone calls from the Creek people, which we've addressed that, and got my calves branded, and we're on the farming. So,
Richard?
I had one meeting. It was on Tuesday, April 26th. It was a Verge Economic Development meeting. Main topic of conversation was solar panels. We had 2 people there from 40 Mile, and they've got some very large solar panel projects that are being looked at. The one that would be west of Red Rock Canyon, in that area, approximately 970,000 panels, which would cover over 1,400 acres. So that is quite a concern. There's been lots of debate on it, and they just whatever the decision they make, they know they got to live with it for a long time, and that's really tough. So between that and all the windmills, they're just trying to balance things out. So that was one of them anyway. Other than that, everything was going good. Got a phone call a couple of days ago on our feathers. I guess that problem's not quite over with yet. So obviously my colleagues are not answering their phone, and I am. So thanks, Shane. Yeah, and That's about it. Yeah, we are curious, as Dustin had said, as to, what's happening in that coulee on the 120. I appreciate that, or the dip on the 120, because, yeah, what a challenge. Access, everything, right? So we do feel for you guys in Public Works on that, so. That's it. Thank you.
Dustin?
I guess a follow-up question to Richard's report with those solar panels. Did anyone attend that public hearing? I know I had phoned in and asked about it, but it was, yeah. No, okay.
Yeah, we weren't, until Councillor Vossler made staff and planning staff aware, we had no knowledge of the public hearing, and so we had other obligations and commitments and weren't able to attend, but because of the short notice, but, so no.
So I got a quick question for one of you ranchers. How many head do you run on something like that if you're just grazing? So how many head of cattle would that take out of?
So I've got property that's a couple miles from there, and roughly the carrying capacity is right around that 13 to 14 cows a quarter.
A quarter?
Yeah.
I was just curious on what that would be taken out of.
Well, the one lady did comment, it was Stacy Burrows, and she said they farm there down in that area, and it's good farmland, she said. So it's a combination of farmland and grassland. But to say that's not good farmland, she said no, that's not the right comment. So.
I've been fielding a few calls myself on that one as well, because I happen to be friends with a couple of neighbors out there, and they've been more phoning and asking what they should be doing about it, because I guess they know me, I guess. But I kind of said, you know, you go to your public hearing and you deal with the AUC process as it goes. It's a long ways from over, even if the county of 40 Mile decides not to allow that district to go ahead. I said the AUC still could proceed without them, so they're quite concerned about it. It is a fairly large solar project, and the topography out there that they're covering, they're essentially covering the hillsides and quite a bit of farmland with it. There's lots of natural springs in that area. It pretty much abuts right up to the Red Rock Coulee natural area on the south side, as well as, I'm sure you guys remember, if some of you remember a few years back, probably about 15 years back now, there was a big fire that ripped through like all the ranches and whatnot down there, and that was that whole area where they're putting it that burnt up. It's a really big wildlife area as well. They travel through there fairly heavily, because there's just a big draw coulee that kind of goes along the edge, so it would disrupt that quite a bit. So there's some legitimate concerns from the residents of 40 Mile out there.
Shane?
I got a quick question while we're on this to Dustin Vossler. Dustin, can they put them solar panels on native land, or does it have to be on cultivated or previously cultivated land?
So, to my understanding, with any AUC guideline, it can go on native land as long as it's not leased land. But apparently, I've heard now that some of those windmills in 40 Mile have gone on to government lease as well, so they may have gone away from that. So originally, I know when this project was going on out here at Dunmore, they wouldn't allow any wind towers to go on native prairie, but I believe in the last year or 2 years, they've taken and changed that so now that they can.
So my understanding is through the environmental assessment, they do that evaluation. That would be part of the environmental, that would be part of the assessment.
It's hard for a hawk to get a sage grouse when it's underneath the solar panel.
Okay, thanks for that information, guys. That's good to know. Blaine?
Yeah, pretty slow in my area. Didn't have much going on other than the last meeting. Was looking forward to going to the water, I shouldn't say co-op, but the water meeting that the Cabin Lake group has put together, and that'll be tonight, so hopefully have something to report back to the next one.
Shane?
Not much. Dealing with a few complaints about odd stuff, and I never got the one about the feathers back again. Had the Cypress Red Cliffs Cypress County Regional Landfill meeting where I let Lloyd be the good cop and I was the bad cop, and we'll do a report afterwards in closed camera. And that was about it.
Michelle?
Since the last meeting, I've had a policy meeting yesterday for Cypress View, which we did like 29 policies in an hour and a half. We were rock stars yesterday. It was awesome. I attended the provincial FCSSAA meeting last week. It was on Friday. We did a strategic planning session with that on Thursday all day, which was good. I liked it. And then on Friday, what came out of that meeting is that Karen Runco, for our representative from the province, is moving on. And so we have this new guy, I think his name is Stephen Galt. Anyway, he was starting yesterday. So our meeting, our spring regional meeting that we have for our FCSS board on the 11th is probably going to have to be changed because we can't have any representation. So I did send Jeffrey an email with all the dates of everybody else's, because they're all packed into like from now till June 10th. So I don't know exactly when we can get this in here, but I'm sure the Stephen guy will reach out to us, and we just have to postpone the date. What else did we have? Oh, the convention for the FCSS is going to be in person, and it's going to be, the only date options that we have are from November 21st to the 23rd, or somewhere in there. They're going to check that. And so far they have, one of the speakers is Dr. Jody Carrington, is the keynote speaker for one of the afternoon. I don't know if anybody's seen her, but she was wonderful. I watched her online one time, and I really enjoyed it. So it should be a good one. Oh, we did have a special meeting for the Cypress View, and things are settling, I think, there. It's pretty good. Our new CAO has finally figured out what he's supposed to be doing and is running with it. So hopefully things just are good from now on in there. And I think that's about it. Thanks.
Robin?
I had a FCM executive meeting this last week. Had a couple of conversations and a site visit with Richard Hofer with regards to the Cypress Wind project. Thank you, Tara Lynn, for meeting up with him yesterday and with your staff. I know he was happy with what you guys were able to discuss, and I appreciated you guys getting connected. Tonight we've got the Icf meeting as well as the Cabin Lake, so we'll have updates on that in the meeting to come, same as Blaine. So other than that, that's it. Thank you.
Michelle?
I forgot to add something to that. I also have had quite a few phone calls from ratepayers in my area wanting to get the Director of Emergency Management to come out and do a talk, kind of like they did in 2017. And because there's just that windstorm that knocked the power out. All this, I'm pretty sure, is stemming from that. Everybody is worried and concerned and stuff like that. So if that's possible, if we can get a meeting set up, it would be great if we could do it like in the fall, because you do it now and you're not going to get any attendance anyway. So if we could do it somewhere after that. And then I wanted to say that I watched the city council meeting last night, and these guys were pretty good. I enjoyed it very much. Okay, now we're done. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman?
That's cheap. It was 50.
Just to further the discussion about emergency management, so in the fall, we could do a traveling road show and do all the communities and do something like that. Talk about the 72-hour kit to have, talk about if you're evacuated, reception area will be more than likely here, those sort of things. Because if you're displaced, you would go to the city through Red Cross, like when we had the train derailment in Irvine.
Traveling roadshow?
Steve will put a dress on.
That would be wonderful for that. And if you could explain that the county office, like if anything major happens, because that's one of the major concerns, is that we're 45 minutes away from here. So some of the questions they're asking me are they're trying to get like a muster point or somewhere in the communities to do that. And I've tried to explain to them that, you know, if it's an evacuation or anything, that this would be their muster point. But, so if you could, when you do your talk, if you could do something, you know, explain a little bit about that, because that is one of the major concerns, is that we're so far away.
And when we had the train derailment in Irvin, we were hauling kids in particular from there into here, because their folks were at work and they couldn't get through the one to get to them. So we were hauling kids, going through the back way on 124 and coming down and getting kids. So we're very familiar with with evacuating. Hopefully not too familiar. Hopefully that doesn't happen ever again. But super cool. Thank you.
Dustin?
So this was kind of a thing that came up in one farmer group I sit in. Would it not be advantageous in these rural communities to install some sort of backup power system at the community facilities for these events where we're out of power for days on end or whatever, so that at least there's a shelter within the local community for people to go to? We all talk about these evacuation centers and whatnot and sending people into the city, but wouldn't it be more advantageous for especially places like Hilda to actually just install a backup generator at like their community hall so that they have the means to do it within their community?
Through the chair. Thanks, that was a good question. That's something actually that Terrell and I have been talking about on a little bit longer of detail to look at working with emergency, and we actually were talking with the director of municipal services about the potential of having a power plant that could be mobile, because obviously they need support whenever there is an evacuation. They need support from here, and so then we could be using it for big events like on-scene lighting and the power plant and everything that could be mobile and work in conjunction with the community's facilities there. So that's something that we've been talking about actually as of the last 2 weeks. So
Yeah, so years gone by, there was a JEP grant and Joint Emergency Preparedness, and that's where a lot of the funding came from years ago. They don't have it anymore, but that was through emergency management through the province. And a lot of communities and municipalities got a lot of the backup generators from that grant, but they don't have that anymore. So that was called a JEP grant.
So some of the discussion is like what Kim had said, maybe we hook up the community halls that are wired in so you can just bring the generator out and plug right into it. Having a generator at every community hall is not feasible because you got to start them up every month for liability, and it just wouldn't work. But to do something along that line and have one here that could just zip out and go to it might be something to look at in the future.
and that was one of the deficiencies that we found when we've had major events, is that we don't have that power plant with the lights and that home base. So that would help with that too.
Any other questions? Comments? Blaine's moving the reports, so vote. Carried. We will take a 5-minute break. skip over 10.1. We're going to put that in camera. Keith has requested that. So we are going to go 10.2. Carolyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 43 is Dunmore and Suffield turf request. So on page 43 is the request for decision. And so the recommended motion is that Council directs administration to fund this request from the cap levy, and there to follow is the background information. Is there any questions?
Richard? Oh. Seniors first.
Okay, I'm gonna make the motion that, we go with, where's the other motion? Alternate motion of, I'm feeling elder abuse here.
It's not your day.
It's not my day.
Sorry, so we have changed that up. So like right before, it was like the recommended motion, and
Yeah.
then right to follow was alternative. So that is totally changed. So the recommended motion is like the first up top, and then just for your
Yeah.
reference for future, so no one gets lost.
I was still eating my cookie on this. Anyway, I want to go with option B, where we spend 105,000 and we do the play structures in Dunmore and Suffield and the Dunmore ball diamond. I think that let's get that ball diamond into use this year. Plus the fact that sod is still always the best way to get a good. What am I looking for? It just does a better job. So that's my motion. And I don't think we're lacking in cap, and I think it's going to be a great year again for cap. I think there's a ton of gravel being hauled out there for the windmills, for the highway project. I think we can make this work.
Blaine?
Well, I just don't quite understand the difference in the cost, I guess. Why from 68 to 105 when it looks to be the same program almost?
Mr. Chairman, our Director of Public Works can elaborate on that.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. So the difference is the hydro seeding. So the 105 was complete sod job, and then the 65 was a blend between hydro seeding and sod. We were planning on, we can put sod around the play structures because they get traffic, and then if you do any kind of hydro seeding, the grass won't establish. And then that was the difference between the two. Now the 65 would take the ball diamond out of use for 2022. Where if it was sodded, it would be 2 weeks. They could be out and playing on it.
Okay, Richard?
I think there's a couple of questions here about funding. And the difference between, what I could understand between A and C is the source of funding. So you've got A and C are both basically the same numbers, but it's the source of funding.
That's correct. One of those was coming from cap, and the other one was coming from operations. Because we had it budgeted to do the project through operations, but not at full sod. And we thought that was important to bring it back because that's a change of level of service for 2022 for council. So we wanted you guys to be aware of that, and then give that option of where to fund it also.
Shane and then Michelle.
Well, I agree with Richard. That cap levy, I mean, I got in trouble for bringing that forward, but this is what it's meant for. We got it, like the ball diamond, if we do it in sod, everybody wants to play. They want to get going after this COVID. And to wait a year that they can't play ball by doing hydro seeding, that's why we did that cap levy. That's what it was designed for, to help these communities like this. That's what the funding's there, sitting there for. And I agree with the old fella there that we'll, for alternative motion number 1.
Michelle?
I like this. It's from the cap levy. That's what it's there for, like Shane said. That's all good. My only question is, or concern maybe, is if we do sod on the ball diamonds, won't the gophers just wreck it, like, almost immediately?
No, they're, through the chair, sorry. The gophers they don't like water, and so we'll be pounding the water on that. It's a brand new irrigation system in the ball diamond, and so hopefully that will deter them to keep them outside of that perimeter.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know, thanks.
Yeah, if you don't cut the grass, they don't like high grass either, so.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Not seeing any, I have motion on the floor. Oh, sorry, Keith.
Okay, so this around the play structure, that's just in the campground or the playground in Suffield then?
Yeah.
So what would that be, like 100 feet by 100 feet or 400 feet by 400 feet?
Kim?
Through the chair. That's actually, so there's the play structure that, and Richard might have to, I'm just going off of kind of eyeball. I think the play structure is probably around 70 by 120 maybe. And then outside of that perimeter, from all the way from the road all the way to the community center. And then we would be hydro seeding in that area up front where it's not being used very much, where the camp kitchen is. So that would be hydro seeded, but everywhere around that would be sodded. Yeah. Sorry, the heavy traffic area. So actually I have how many square feet for both projects, I think, on when we did our calculations, but yeah, yeah, sorry about that, I don't have the exact, yeah. But right from road to road.
You were number one or number two on your alternative?
I was option B, so let me go back.
Okay. Yeah, number one. I just want to clarify for Ingrid over there. So it's number one in the alternative motions is what Richard has made. Any other questions on it? Vote. Carried. Great. .3, Terlin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 47, Financial Services Auditor's Contract, the recommended motion is that council appoint KPMG as the Cypress County Financial Auditor for the years of 22, 23, 24. Under the Municipal Government Act, council needs to appoint an auditor. Our KPMG was our auditors for the past, I think, 8 or so years. I believe that council is very good with their services that they provide. They're very thorough. Derek does an excellent job of presenting the financials. They are always available to administration if we have any questions. They have been very resourceful to us as well. And so they have offered to enter into a new contract for 22, 23, 24 with a reduction of 11%. And when we did the RFP 3 years ago, they were significantly lower than their competitors. So we would recommend that council appoints KPMG once again for 22, 23, 24.
Blaine?
Well, I'll make that motion because I believe in continuity, and if the administration is happy with what KPMG is doing, I think they're a good firm to stay with.
Michelle, and then Dustin. Oh, Dustin, you're good? You're just, okay. What's your question on this? Oh, all right. Keep your hand down then. All right, Blaine made the motion for a 3-year contract. Any questions? Vote. Carried. Okay.
Okay, it's going back to the previous one. Richard made the motion for suspend 105, but I'm not sure, I'm just confused. What motion we do, because the recommended motion is only for 68,000.
No, it's on the alternative one. Go to the alternative side.
Oh, is that the very?
Yeah. That's why I said alternative, cause we'll get the new system figured out.
Yeah.
No, I like that you have it separated out, cause we don't get confused looking at I see what you're doing, it's just, we gotta get used to it. Yeah.
I struggled with where he was on there too.
That's okay. Yep.
I'm gonna sneak in a moment to talk about how those financial implications work now. So now that we've identified that, we had it in the budget to do that sod, and now we've identified that we're actually, hydro seeding, now we've identified that we're gonna sod it. So you'll see that $68,000 that was budgeted for that sod end up in unallocated reserves at the end of the year. It won't be spent. And you'll get to apply that to the reserve you want at the end of the year. Sorry, I had to sneak that in.
Yep. Perfect time. I was gonna say, I think we've already spent that 68,000, but. $10.4, Carolyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. FCM Board of Directors appointment. Recommended motion is that council endorse Councillor Kirpyway to run for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Board of Directors rural position with the expenses to be covered by RMA as per the compensation, as per their compensation policy. I believe that Councillor Kirpyway probably would have way more to add than me.
Sure, thank you, Carolyn. 3 years ago, council supported me to get involved with committees. We did that for 2 years last year. We brought forward the idea of running for the board and basically not running for committees, providing that I get elected to the board of directors because RMA covers that position. RMA only has one rural director that is elected in Alberta, so we have one position. Currently, that is the position that I hold. Back in September, I was elected as the chair for the Rural Caucus for all of Canada, and so that puts me on the executive with FCM as well. I appreciate what staff pulled together with regards to our strategic alignment. One thing that could be added to here as well is public safety. When I look at the regional leadership side, I know that the city has talked a lot about working with hydrogen and doing different, expansion and development, and there's a lot of opportunities and connections with, through the Green Municipal Fund, through infrastructure and the connections that, as a director, it's, we have connections that we gain through that. As the chair of the Rural Caucus, I represent rural Canada in anything that FCM meets with, and so I'm meeting with multiple ministers and party heads quite frequently, which has been good. So there's some good opportunity to continue with that. Under the public safety, one of the main things that we've been focusing on has been the retroactive policing costs with the RCMP. That's been one of our primary priorities. We've worked hard with RMA, FCM on the rural internet file. Certainly not something that any individual or group can claim victory in alone, but we are up to almost that $840 million mark right now in Alberta for investment through provincial and federal funding. So we've been seeing some really good movement on that. I would like to continue the role. I enjoy it. There's still a lot of work to be done. I know that RMA is happy with the work I've been doing. I hope the council is as well. For those of you who attended our RMA meeting, Paul and I had a good opportunity to kind of give an update from the floor or from the stage on the progress that we've been making and that we continue to make. RMA actually has also expanded their efforts in federal advocacy because not all of our issues are issues that FCM is able to take forward. Good example of that is if we have something that's specifically oil and gas, it's something that we don't want to lose the potency of the point or of the argument, and so under Paul's leadership, they've formed this federal advocacy group and have invited me as the rural chair to be a part of that. So those are just some of the different synergies that we have. The AGM is coming up in the beginning of June. The directors are elected annually, and as a part of the putting your name forward for that election is an endorsement form. The main difference with this is that I'm not asking council to cover any of my costs. I just need council's thumbs up and RMA will cover my costs should I be successful in being re-elected to the board. Those are all my comments. Thank you.
Michelle, and then Shane.
I will make a motion that we let him do it, carry on.
Shane?
I would like to add to that motion as long as he can get the Meridian Dam built.
So this is just if you get reelected. If you don't get reelected, then...
Correct. If I don't get reelected, I won't be on the board. I won't have any part of it. So this just allows me to put my name forward. They'll put it up on the list. Usually once you're on the board in that position, you're usually there until, but I'm always open to be challenged by somebody that wants to run as well.
Blaine?
So how long is the term, I guess, is just?
Every year, yeah. Okay, any other questions? Not seeing any. Motion is to let Robin go with FCM. Vote. Carried. 10.6 or 10.5, Carolyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2022 recreation funding, it's on page 51. So the recommended motion that council approve recreation grant request for the Dunmore Equestrian, Elkwater Golf, Jenner Hall, Longfellow Community Center, and 7 persons for a total of $35,480. To follow is the strategic alignment. Also to prevalent legislation and policy is the annual rec grants, policy rec 2. And then following that is just background information. So for your information, the policy that we have for recreation, the annual contribution to community associations as per policy is $251,000. As per policy, small project grants, so each group gets $2,000, and they give that to other community groups in their community. And then as per policy, Red Cliff Rec is $12,240. And as per motion of council, the City of Medicine Hat contribution to recreation is $200,000. So that's $481,740. And with 7,600 people, that is $63 per capita. So just for your information. So to follow is the second part of the grant process is requests from the associations for capital projects. And typically the requests are only funded 50%. However, council may consider to fund up to 100% for county-owned assets. And so the annual budget is $99,240. This year, 6 capital grant requests came through for $64,447. So to follow is the different, just a quick synopsis of each request. So the Hilda Association, they're asking for a generator, and at this time, administration recommends to hold off on that request for their community hall. But that's our recommendation. Council can fund the projects they see fit. And so it goes further to talk about discussion and options, the financial implications, public engagement, and attachments is the policy for your review. So if you hadn't seen it, it's there for you to take a boo at. And the alternative recommendations are there. And that is it, Mr. Chairman.
Richard?
I'll make the motion to go with the recommended motion with the funds total being $35,480. That would be for all those requests, Keith, that were in there.
Except for Hilda.
Except for the Hilda power plant or generator. Yep.
Yeah, it's 64. Yeah.
I shouldn't have put that amount in there, but
The 64,000 includes Hilda though, right? Are you sure? Just,
Request is 64, but if we take out the,
yeah, 35, yeah.
Yep.
64, so you're saying everything but Hilda so far?
just as it says in there, yeah, recommended motion would be Dunmore Equestrian Society, Elkwater Park, Golf Club, Jenner, Longfellow, 7 persons.
Okay, so
Yeah.
not the generator. So everybody's clear, that
No
takes
generator.
out Hilda for the generator. I got a question. Go ahead, Shane.
I got a question with I'm gonna be in trouble, but the Dunmore Equestrian Society, they're asking for water line and power. Where, doesn't say where it's going or what they're doing with it. And that, I mean, if it's going over to the, what are they using it for? And then I was just going through their financials, I noticed they have 2019, 2020, but no 21, like everybody else does.
that was the current financials that was forwarded to us.
Plus salaries and benefits at 64,000. I thought they're nonprofit, they're volunteer. But no, it's just, I don't know what that water and power, where it's going.
So I thought we were putting the water line in.
That's in the road right away. But
So they want us to put it from the right of way to
So
where
this
they
is
want.
applied for, so it says funds will be used towards facility operations to put in that, the water line on their property and the electrical, that would be. And
They
that's.
could be doing an updated project where they're pulling
Yeah.
it somewhere else. I'm not, like, I don't know the logistics behind it, but I'm guessing they're probably pulling it over to another part of their property for use for something else.
So if you look on page 89, it breaks down the cost. That's what they submitted, I don't know any don't know any further.
Just that the other ones, you know, I said for the floor,
Specific, yeah.
you were more specific what they're doing and that. I was just questioning that.
They're not really doing a whole bunch of water and electrical for $9,000, I'll tell you that for free. So I'm guessing they're just taking and pulling it somewhere else within the property.
Blaine?
My speculation is that they're putting it over to the overnight horse hotel that they have going there. I thought I read it, but maybe somebody told me it, but I think that's their plan. Also, with that, I noticed that they're asking for 100% of the money, and probably gonna get shot too from people, but I feel that they should get 50%, like all the rest of the communities, because the rest of the communities are all fundraising as well, to make it consistent and fair.
That's fair. So you're asking for a friendly amendment?
Yes.
He's asking for a friendly that it's 50% on the.
I just assumed they were asking for 50% because that's the rules, so,
No, the total bill was that total amount.
okay, so then I will do amendment to it stating that, for equestrian center, it'll be 46,
97.50.
97.50.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other questions in here? No, it's done. That was,
What is Dutchess? It's for Dutchess, Alberta? Like, that's not even in the county. Oh, for Jenner? Okay, okay, then I'm fine with it, thanks.
any,
The Jenner Hall, like, it's not in the county either, but we have a lot of community members that utilize that, and so we support them. And
I've just never seen Dutchess on there.
yeah, I think that's just probably just their mailing address. Yeah, I would assume. Yep.
What page is that?
It is on page 76.
Jordy Gooding, the secretary.
This is another one later that Jenner's asking for something, and then this one is.
yeah, they just get their mail in Dutchess, that's all. Yeah,
That is, I think that is for the Table Rock. It is.
yeah.
Yeah, that's different than the general hall.
Yeah, I know, that's what got me going,
Yeah.
was because there's one for Jenner, that's
That's
for
right.
Hall, and then there was this one, so I just wasn't sure. But, I'm good with it.
Okay, any other questions? Glad to see everybody went through this year. There was a lot to read in there, but good. Well, there's a first for everything, Shay. This is the first time you read the agenda. Not everybody, just you. Anybody watching? Just you. Just anybody watching would expect it. You bring it on yourself. Any other comments on it? So we have a motion on the floor, taking out Hilda, doing 50% of equestrian center, and everything else goes through. And Keith, did you have a question on it? Oh, no, Richard already made it, yep. Okay, if everybody's good with that, I'll ask for the vote. Vote. Carried. In camera. Okay. Lloyd's moving to go. Just at the time.
Stays off, and then we're gonna come back and continue in closed session, and then council's gonna come out of closed session and make motions out of closed session. Okay. But just, you can leave it off, you have black screen on, right now.
But we're coming out right now.
Advisory Committee, requesting the committee to consider including fire chiefs, duty officers, a recognized authority with the comprehensive training and experience when requesting a helicopter be dispatched. Additionally, requests the committee to review the policy of delaying helicopter dispatch until ground resources are on scene.
Okay, Dustin, you're gonna make that motion? I would have said you, Keith, but I think you're gonna give a letter anyhow on your behalf, so. Any other questions on that? Vote. Carried. Okay, and there's nothing under the other one in camera?
Make a comment that Ingrid has done a way better job than Leslie Ann, for the record.
Yeah. No, she's got a drink in her hand. There was a few words said there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, meeting adjourned.